Love it? Hate it? Find it relaxing? Find it tedious? Ballasting. Let's give it a go. Before we actually get onto the ballasting part of the video, I thought I'd give you a quick overview of what I've been doing with my terrain. The last time I put a video out, I showed myself building this, a very short video just showing how I formed my mountain, or well, it's a hill really, it's not big enough to be a mountain. But since then I've been actually putting into place on the layout itself, and of course what I've been doing is using a lot of plaster cloth to fill in the gaps and things where I obviously have the track is supported here and there's a gap underneath, the track supported here. So I've been filling in those gaps and putting in what I hope will become rock and rock faces. Underneath here is a cardboard, scrunched up paper, that sort of thing to give me some basis for my shape. But basically I've been using plaster cloth. I just lay it down, let it more or less drape as it wants to give it some sort of shapes and things, and to also fasten this down. So this is actually glued to the layout, and then I've been filling in all the gaps and things and working through. I've stopped here because I'm expecting to have a scenic break there, so I don't need to take it back there. I may have to do a little bit of finishing off there, but I'll worry about that later. This now is nice and fixed, glued down and solid and all connected and everything, and obviously you'll need to let it dry. This has been drying for a couple of days. With this sort of weather, I'm in my garage. It's not great drying weather, but that's fine. This is now pretty good and nice and solid. I do need to finish it off. It does need to have sculptor mold or something similar used. If you look closely you can see the cloth, but that's the nature of the plaster cloth. I've also done the little hill over there with the tunnel, same idea, and put it in place, the basic structure, padded out with cardboard, paper, that sort of thing, and then just put the plaster cloth on and let it dry. Once this is had sculptor mold on, then I will obviously paint it, but I'll worry about that later, because having got this in place, I'm now ready to move on to the ballasting, which is the next job I want to do. I've tried ballasting after putting down static grass and things, and for me that didn't work. My method of doing it caused me more grief than it was worth. So I like to do the ballasting before I put down the static grass. That's a personal choice. There is no right or wrong. And it's like with all things, there are many ways of doing ballasting, but fundamentally it's a very simple process. You lay down the ballast, you put glue on it, leave it to soak, leave it to dry out, and you're done. Well, it's not quite as simple as that, of course, but what I like to do is I put the ballast down, use a little brush to sort of try and shape it. I've got my track on cork, so I get a little bit of a shoulder, that's the idea, and then I just work round. Now I know there are different ways of actually putting the ballast down. You can buy those little hoppers and fill them up and you just drag them along. I don't have one of those for my TT scale. I've used one on HO00, and then they work all right. But I suppose because I haven't got a big layout, it's not going to take me forever to do this, though it'll take a bit of time. So my method will be to basically use a spoon, put the ballast down, do some brushing to make sure it fills in all the gaps where I want, and then I'll use my glue. So what I'll do is I will move on to the next stage, or the next part of this video, which is really showing you what I'm using, what I've got. From there I'll do a little demo of actually putting the ballast down. Here's the basic ingredients for ballasting. Got some PVA glue, which I will mix with water, about half, and also add some washing up liquid to it to help, which helps it soak in. I've got some Woodland Scenics medium ballast. This is a grey. This is what I happen to have to hand. It's quite a fine ballast, which obviously for the TT scale is quite good. I also have some coarser ballast here that I'm not sure where I got that from actually. It's a sort of big bag, so I will use that as well. I will mix it a little bit. I'll put some of that down. It's the slightly bigger chunks, pieces, so I'll put some of that down just to give a bit of variety. I think this is a nice ballast, but it sort of could look a little bit samey, so with a bit of a different ballast, the same basic colour, slightly darker grey. I've got my brush and I've got a spoon. So what do I actually do? What will I do? Well, to lay the ballast, basically I'm going to lay it down as follows. I sort of get a spoonful of it, and I said I'm doing this because it's such a small layout, and I basically can just go along like that. And I just sort of, so you see I'm sort of filling in the to start with at the beginning, then, and then just put a bit again, just using it. Now at the moment, of course, it looks quite a mess, but that's fine, because so what I find is as I get into this, so it becomes, I haven't done this for a while, so it's getting used to the size of the ballast and the flow and things. But then what I can do is, once I've got the basic thing, what I want to do is brush so that the ballast goes into the gaps. Certainly I don't want any ballast on the track. So you can just fill it in like that. And then on the sides, again, you just want to get it off the sleepers. And I just sort of push it up so that it gives me my shoulder. Now, I can say now that I can see parts where the cork is still thrown through because I haven't maybe got quite enough ballast there. What I'll quite often do is do this in a couple of stages. I'll do the basic, get the basic shape, and then if I need to come back and put a bit more ballast, and so it's just a matter of brushing gently. And then you can see that's already starting to look quite reasonable as far as I'm concerned. And now I said I was going to use some of this other ballast, so I just sort of put a little bit, just for a little bit of contrast. As I said, it's probably not noticeable on the camera, but when this is done later, when it's all glued, it'll just show up as a little bit of extra shading. Of course, the other thing to do, or you can do, once the ballast is down and dry, you can then use weathering powders and that side of things to actually stop it looking like it's straight out of a depot. It had a bit of wear and tear, but now what I tend to do is do it in little sections. I don't want to do too much. partly because it does get a little bit tedious, or can do. So what I'm going to do is, you may notice I've already started a bit here when I was trying things out, so I'll come back to that point and we will put the ballast in. It always looks, when you start, like a little bit of, oh, what's happening? You're going everywhere. But so sort of put a bit of this in as well, ahead of time. So here we are. So now I probably should have started here because I'm going to brush this way, but that's all right. Now it can take a little bit of while, this brushing and smoothing and getting it so the ballast is in the right place, and maybe that's what some people find a bit tedious, because it can be a little bit well, as I said, take a bit of time, but that's all right. So you just sort of, now of course the other thing is it's ballast, it's not going to have been laid down with super precision. I mean, obviously there's quite a bit of precision to get it right, but it doesn't need to be inch or foot perfect, whatever. So just a matter of getting it so there we go, we're getting there. Now, as I said, there are places where you can see, maybe you can't see on the video, but where the cork is showing, the shoulder of the cork. So what I'll probably have to do is, I can always put a bit more ballast there now and just fill in those bits. Of course, the other thing is, once you've got it all dry, you can always come back, as you can see, with weathering powders and that side of things. So some of that showing cork will be well hidden if you need. I mean, in some cases I actually just get out a bit of paint and dab it a bit of grey or something just to cover it. But there we go. So that is almost as I would want it. I just want to make sure that I've got no stones actually up against the rails in such a way that they would derail. And in fact, if I just run my finger along, I can definitely feel, maybe I'll hear it, getting some of those bits out. So that's the first bit of ballasting down. Now what I will usually do is I'll do another section with the ballast, probably to about here, so we get this bit done. I'm not going to touch that point at the moment because they get a bit tricky, especially this bit up in here where there's no moving bits. That's fine, but this little bit you need to be a little bit more delicate, especially when you're putting the glue down. So I'll get on with this. I will put some more down and then I'll come back. Once I've got the ballast as I want it, I can then start doing my gluing. I use PVA glue, craft glue that I've just picked up from Hobbycraft, actually, as you can probably see. Well, I need to go on to get some more. Some water. I usually mix it 50-50. And then a bit some washing up liquid into that mix as well, which helps it soak in all right. And I've at the moment just got a little pipette to which I'll just suck it up and do it. Now that's fine for short little bits, and then certainly for here. But another thing I quite like doing, and I've got something on order, is getting one of those plastic sauce bottles that you see in restaurants or other places with the ketchup in or things. It's something that Graham Fulson on Lakeside uses and has shown. I think it's a really good idea because you can make up quite a good mix of your glue and water and washing up liquid, and it's quite easy to apply. So I will also demonstrate that a bit later, but for now I'll get on with this and I'll be back in a bit when I'm ready to do the gluing. Having filmed the last bit, I realised probably the camera is a bit further away than it should have been, so I've just done a little bit of a closer up as I continue to just play or just sort of smooth out the ballast, just getting it to there we go. So hopefully you can see the ballasting that I've done. You can see that it's nicely within those sleepers. One thing I will say is when I actually come to putting the glue on, if you're not careful, if you drop the glue from too high a level, it'll just wash all that away, which then makes it harder. But then once it gets a little bit sticky, you can, oh, well, I use the end of my spoon just to push it back in, but I'm sure I'll show that a bit later. And so you do want to have a way of applying the glue from not from a great height. And as you'll see, what I tend to do is I will start by laying the glue into here, and it starts running out, and then lay the glue, put it using the dropper to be as close up to the top here and let it just run down, and it sort of forms the shape that I want. So I've just got to carry on with the rest. As I said, I will do a section probably about to there, do this bit here excluding the point itself, and then I'll get the glue, make up some glue. I haven't got the glue made up at the moment, but we will do that. So we just continue with there we are, starting of the ballasting. One thing I would say is that as I put the glue on the ballast, as I let it dry, I quite often take the track pins out because clearly the track is becoming glued down with the ballast. But that's just something I do, just a preference, and is not something that's essential. The ballast is in place, and I'm now ready to put a bit of glue. Now I've already got a bit of water in here. I'm going to add then roughly the same amount of glue, so the PVA, and the other PVA, so looks like a trip to Hobbycraft is in order to get more PVA. So that is roughly about half. I've also then got some washing up liquid, and I put a bit of a squirt in. I must admit it's a little bit haphazard in terms of quantities, but it's about half. So then stir it all up. And if it's a bit thicker than I really want, I'd add a bit more water, but that seems about the right consistency. Sort of, we'll see how we get on once we start using it. So now, because it's just a small bit, I'm using the pipette. When if I had a larger bit, when I come to do the rest, I will use the plastic sauce bottle that I mentioned. But until I've got more glue, there's not much point me filling that up or trying to fill it. So now we can just get a bit of glue in there, and then it's a case of just putting it onto the track and letting it soak in. That of course will soak in nicely. The washing up liquid is what helps break the surface tension. So you can see the glue soaking in. So having done that, I can then do the trickier bit, which, well, at least I find the tricky bit, the shoulders. But if I run along at the top here, and the idea is the glue itself will then start running down. Now, I would think I need my glue to be a little bit wetter, so I'm just going to go and add a little bit more water to this. So I've added about a tablespoonful of extra water. Just make it a little bit runnier, because really what I want to do, the glue to do, is to run down through off the edge. There we go. Now I don't know if you can see, but here the ballast has got quite dislodged, so I'm not scientific at all, but I tend to just use my spoon and just push. Now if it's too wet when you do this, all you'll do is pick up the ballast on the edge of your spoon. But I think you can see the idea. The glue there is already soaked in. Glue here has already started to soak in. Not exactly hard to do, just can take a bit of time. So here, if I just run the glue just along the top of the sleepers here, it will then slowly make its way down. There you are. That's the first set of glue down, the first bit of ballasting done. You may see the extra slightly different colouring where I've used the extra stone. And the other thing, once it's all dry, once the whole thing is ballasted, then we will come back and do some weathering, use some weathering powders or something like that to show a little bit of as though the trains keep going past. But I'm quite happy with the way that's going, and I will, once it's all dry, I then can put static grass or bushes in there, whatever, and it will come together hopefully. Ballasting, a simple process. Yes, it can be a bit tedious, yes it can take a bit of time, but hopefully you've seen it's fairly easy to do. I must admit there are a couple of things I did mention earlier in the video that I thought I might be able to finish this video with. One was showing the plastic sauce bottle with the glue in and showing how easy that is to use. Rather than the pipette, you have more glue so you can do bigger chunks. Unfortunately, the bottles I've ordered haven't arrived yet, and I'm not sure they're going to come today. The other thing I did say I was going to show the whole layout ballasted. But again, I think time has caught up with me. I'm not going to get it all done. I'm going to work on this for the rest of the day probably, but I don't think I'm going to get it finished today. So again, I think rather than waiting for that to be done to get the video out, I'd like to get the video out. So that's what I'm going to do. Of course, if you've got any comments, any suggestions, any ways I can improve things, any better techniques I should use, please do let me know. As I said, there are plenty of other videos out there on ballasting. I think of Graham Fulson at Lakeside, Charlie Bishop at Chadwick Model Railway, all experts. I'm not an expert, but you don't have to be an expert to do ballasting. It is a straightforward process. So thank you for watching. I hope you found the video of help, and I look forward to seeing you, or you seeing me, the next time. Bye.